A freeloader like you deserves to be thrown in jail. Judge Harold Whitaker's voice thundered at the frail old veteran standing before the bench. He leaned forward in his black robe. Do you think this court exists to excuse men who refuse to pay their debts? Matthew swallowed. No, Your Honor. Do you think a uniform from 60 years ago gives you the right to walk into a diner, eat what you want, and leave someone else holding the bill? No, sir. I was going to pay. With what? Whitaker snapped. A sad story? A trembling voice? That little veteran cap you keep squeezing like it is supposed to impress me? Matthew's fingers tightened around the brim. My pension was supposed to come in, he said. I called the bank this morning. They said I had 22 cents. Something is wrong. What is wrong? Whitaker said. Is that men like you mistake pity for currency. Carl Benson, the owner of Carl's Harbor Diner, stood at the plaintiff's table. He wore a brown sport coat and held a folder in both hands. Your Honor, I hate to do this to an old man. I really do. But this isn't just $86.40 anymore. Matthew blinked. Sir? Carl lifted a paper. The original bill, late fees, administrative costs, court filing reimbursement, employee time, inconvenience, and damage to my business reputation. Total comes to $940. A murmur moved through the room. 900? Matthew whispered. No, it was $86. I told them I would pay when my pension cleared. It's Carl's Harbor Diner now, Carl said. And you don't get to decide what your behavior costs. Decent working people. Matthew took a small step forward. Please. I didn't manipulate anyone. I was hungry. Whitaker's mouth tightened. Begging does not improve your position. I'm not begging, Your Honor. I'm trying to explain. You are trying to hide behind age, service, and sentiment. Matthew's lips trembled. I served this country. Whitaker gave a dry laugh. And today, you are standing in my court because you could not pay for stew. Matthew slowly reached into his coat. The bailiff stiffened. It's not a weapon, Matthew said quickly. Please, it's not. He pulled out a small dark oak box, worn smooth at the corners. For a moment, he held it against his chest. His thumb brushed the lid gently, like he was touching something holy. Then he opened it. Inside lay a silver star, a purple heart, a challenge coin, a folded ribbon bar, and a plain gold wedding ring. Beside them was a faded photograph of Matthew as a young man in uniform, standing next to a smiling woman with soft brown curls. My wife, Martha, he whispered. She passed 4 years ago. He lifted the silver star with shaking fingers and placed it on the table. Then, after a painful pause, he set the wedding ring beside it. The courtroom went quiet. Matthew bowed his head. Take them as bond, please, just until my pension clears. The metal is real. The ring is gold. They're worth more than what I owe. Whitaker stared at the metal and ring. Then his mouth twisted. So now you want to trade war trinkets and a dead woman's ring for your freedom? Matthew flinched. They're not trinkets, Your Honor. What are they then? The medal is for men who didn't come home, Matthew said. The ring is all I have left of my wife. And yet here they are, Whitaker said, being offered like scrap metal because you chose to live on food you could not afford. Maya Williams, a quiet lawyer for people no one listened to, stood up. Your Honor, she said, her voice careful, almost trembling. Please, that is enough. Whitaker turned his eyes on her. Sit down, Miss Williams. Maya swallowed. Her hands were cold. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. She was not a lawyer. She was not the judge. She knew exactly how small she looked, standing there between the bench and a man who could ruin her career with one sentence. But she looked at Matthew's wedding ring on the table and could not sit down. I'm sorry, Your Honor, she said softly. I know this is not my place, but this man is 90 years old. He is hungry. He says his pension disappeared. And now Mr. Benson is turning an $86 food bill into almost $1,000, while Mr. Ryan can barely stand. Carl pointed at her. I don't have to be lectured by some clerk. Maya lowered her eyes for a second, then looked back at him. No, sir, you don't. But maybe someone should ask why the amount changed after you saw he was too weak to fight it. Whitaker slammed his palm on the bench. Miss Williams, you are out of line. Maya flinched, but she stayed standing. Yes, Your Honor, she said. Maybe I am, but something about this feels wrong. Whitaker leaned forward. His voice dropped, colder than before. Be careful, Miss Williams. I have tolerated your attitude for years because this court believes in giving people from your background an opportunity. Do not mistake that tolerance for authority. The courtroom went still. Maya's face tightened. The words hurt. Everyone knew what he meant, even though he addressed it in polite language. Matthew looked at her, worried and ashamed. Ma'am, please, don't get yourself in trouble for me. Whitaker smiled thinly. Listen to the old man. He seems to understand his place better than you understand yours. A soft gasp came from the gallery. Near the side aisle, Marcus Reed shifted uneasily. One hand held the leash of Ranger, his retired German shepherd. Ranger's ears pinned forward. The dog stared at Matthew, then at Whitaker, and gave a low whine. Maya's voice became smaller, but not silent. My background, Your Honor, she said, taught me what happens when people with power don't have to listen to people who are scared. Whitaker's face darkened. Another word, and I will hold you in contempt. Maya's fingers trembled at her sides. Then hold me after you look at his bank records. This is a debt case. I understand, Maya said. But what if the debt is only the trap? Carl scoffed. That's ridiculous. Maya pointed gently toward the damp envelope sticking out of Matthew's coat pocket. He says his pension vanished. He brought records. Nobody has looked at them. Instead, he was threatened with jail. And now he's putting his silver star and his wife's wedding ring on a courtroom table just to stay free. Matthew hesitated, then slowly handed Maya the envelope. She opened it with careful hands. The papers were damp and wrinkled. She scanned the first page and saw the strange line printed beneath Matthew's pension deposit. Apex Holdings, LLC. Her chest tightened. She gathered the pages and stepped toward the bench. Your Honor, please. These withdrawals started right after his pension deposit. The same company appears more than once. This may not be refusal to pay. It may be financial exploitation. Whitaker stood so suddenly his chair rolled back and struck the wall. I said enough. His hand swept across the bench. The file flew open. Pages scattered across the table and floor. Several sheets snapped across Maya's right hand. The sharp paper edges sliced her skin. She gasped and pulled back as a thin red line opened across her fingers. Matthew cried out, Maya! Whitaker grabbed the gavel and brought it down hard. Not on the sound block, but on the wood inches from Maya's injured hand. The crack exploded through the courtroom. Maya jerked backward. Her heel caught the edge of the carpet. She stumbled, twisted, and slammed into the sharp corner of the counsel rail. Pain shot through her side. For a moment, she could not breathe. Ranger barked once, deep and fierce. Marcus tightened the leash, his face pale. Judge, stop. Whitaker snapped toward him. Control your dog and your mouth. Maya pushed herself upright. One hand pressed against her ribs. The other bled lightly at her side. The courtroom had changed. People were no longer staring at Matthew, as if he were the problem. They were staring at the judge. Maya bent down slowly and picked up one of the scattered pages. Her voice shook when she spoke, but she forced the words out anyway. If these papers don't matter, Your Honor, why are you so afraid of them? At the back of the room, Gordon Finch stopped smiling, and behind the bench, Judge Harold Whitaker no longer looked like a man protecting the court. He looked like a man protecting a secret. Maya's question hung in the courtroom like smoke. No one moved. Judge Whitaker's hand still gripped the gavel. The papers he had scattered lay across the floor, some under the counsel table, some near Matthew's shoes, one half folded beside the silver star and Martha's wedding ring. Maya stood with one hand pressed to her ribs. Her right hand bled from two thin cuts across her fingers. She was trying not to shake, but everyone could see she was afraid. Still, she did not sit down. Whitaker looked at the gallery, then at the bailiff, then back at Maya. He seemed to realize that too many people had seen too much. This court will take a brief recess, he said coldly. 10 minutes. He struck the gavel again, this time on the sound block. But the sound did not restore order. It only made the silence heavier. Matthew stepped toward Maya as quickly as his weak legs allowed. "Ma'am, you're hurt." "I'm all right," Maya said, though her voice was thin. "No, you're not." Matthew reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a clean white handkerchief, folded with the careful habit of an older generation. "Please." Maya hesitated, then let him wrap it around her bleeding fingers. His hands trembled, but he tied the cloth gently. "I'm sorry," Matthew whispered. Maya looked at him. "For what?" "For bringing trouble to your door." She almost smiled, but pain stopped it. "Mr. Ryan, trouble was already in this room before you walked in." Marcus came closer with Ranger. The dog stayed beside Matthew, shoulder pressed against the old man's leg. Marcus looked at Maya's hand, then at the scattered papers. "You need a medic." "What I need," Maya said, "is 2 minutes with those records before he makes them disappear." Marcus lowered his voice. "Maya, you should slow down." She looked at him sharply. "Why do you keep saying that?" He did not answer fast enough. Maya bent carefully and gathered the pages from the floor. Her side ached where she had hit the rail, but she forced herself to move. One sheet showed Matthew's pension deposit. Another showed withdrawals. The same name appeared again and again. Apex Holdings LLC, $200, $100, $75, $50. Always after the pension came in. Maya placed the pages on the clerk's table and smoothed them with her uninjured hand. "Mr. Ryan, did you authorize these?" Matthew leaned close, squinting. "No, ma'am. I've never heard of that company." "Did Thomas Harding ever mention Apex Holdings to you?" Matthew froze at the name. Marcus looked up. Maya saw it. "Mr. Ryan?" she asked. Matthew swallowed. "Harding came after Martha died. Said he was a financial advisor. Said he helped veterans. He told me the reverse mortgage would cover the hospital bills and leave enough for me to live on." "And you signed papers?" "Yes, ma'am." His eyes filled with shame. "A stack of them. I was tired. Martha had only been gone 3 weeks. I just wanted the phone calls from the hospital to stop." Maya's anger rose, but her voice stayed soft. "That is not your fault." Matthew looked down. "A man should read before he signs. A grieving man should not be hunted because he trusted someone." Marcus shifted again. Ranger glanced up at him, as if sensing the change in his breathing. Across the room, Carl Benson whispered angrily to Gordon Finch. Gordon's smile had returned, but it was smaller now. His eyes kept moving between the medal, the ring, and Maya's papers. Maya picked up the sheet with the diner claim. "Mr. Benson." Carl stiffened. "What? You filed for $86.40. Then today you asked for $940. That's my right. Who told you to add those fees?" Carl's face reddened. "Nobody." Gordon spoke from the back row. "Careful, Carl. She's just a clerk." Maya turned toward him. Her hand throbbed inside Matthew's handkerchief. "And you're just an antique dealer who knew the metal would be cheap after the judge scared him." The gallery stirred. Gordon's eyes narrowed. "I didn't say that." "Yes, you did." Whitaker's chamber door opened. He came back out before the recess was over, his face tight with control. "Miss Williams, step away from those documents." Maya's stomach tightened. She was scared. Everyone could hear it when she spoke. "Your Honor, please. These records show repeated withdrawals from Mr. Ryan's account. If he could not pay Mr. Benson, it may be because someone was taking his pension." Whitaker walked down from the bench, slow and deliberate. "You were given a recess, not permission to conduct an investigation." "I understand." Maya held the papers closer. "But this man was almost jailed, without anyone looking at the reason he had no money." Whitaker stopped a few feet from her. "You are making accusations you cannot prove." "Then let me prove them." "No." The answer came too fast. Maya stared at him. Her fear did not leave, but something steadier rose beneath it. "Why not?" Whitaker's eyes hardened. "Because this court does not answer to you." Matthew stepped forward. His voice was weak, but clear. "Your Honor, if those papers can explain what happened to my pension, I'd like them looked at." Whitaker turned on him. "You would be wise to stay silent." Ranger gave a low growl. Marcus tightened the leash. "Easy, boy." But his own eyes were fixed on Whitaker now. Maya noticed that too. She gathered the bank pages, the diner claim, and Matthew's small envelope. I am entering a note in the record that Mr. Ryan disputes the cause of non-payment and that his account shows suspicious withdrawals. Whitaker's face darkened. You will do no such thing. Maya's voice shook again. Then you can remove me, Your Honor. But I will not pretend I didn't see this. The room went still. For one long second, Whitaker looked as if he might strike the papers from her hand again. Instead, he looked around the courtroom and saw the watching faces. The bailiff, the gallery, Marcus, the old veteran, even Carl Benson suddenly pale. Whitaker returned to the bench. Fine, he said. 15 minutes. Review the records. But when you find nothing, Mr. Ryan goes into custody. Matthew closed his eyes. Maya held the papers against her chest. Thank you, Your Honor, she said quietly. If Maya's courage touched your heart, please like this video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because someone near you may be watching this same story right now. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next powerful story. But she did not feel grateful. She felt the first edge of the truth pressing through the dark, and she knew Judge Whitaker had felt it too. Maya did not waste the 15 minutes. She moved to the small side table near the clerk's station, where the courthouse computer sat beside a printer that always hummed too loudly. Her hand still hurt. The white handkerchief Matthew had tied around her fingers was already marked with thin lines of red. But she kept typing. Matthew stood beside her, weak and ashamed, as if even needing help was a burden he had no right to place on anyone. Marcus stood behind them with Ranger at his side. He said nothing at first, but Maya could feel him watching the screen. She entered the name from the bank statement. Apex Holdings, LLC. The state business registry loaded slowly. Maya's eyes moved over the page. Delaware registration. Mailing address in Wilmington. No office in Washington. No phone number listed. No service history that made sense. This doesn't look like a local billing company, she said. Marcus leaned closer. Shell company. Maybe. Maya looked at him. Maybe? He blinked. I mean, it could be. You saw that name before. Marcus's face tightened. What? When I said Apex in the courtroom, you looked like somebody stepped on your foot. I was surprised. By a company you say you don't know? He looked away. Maya wanted to push him harder, but Matthew's breathing had grown shallow. Ranger pressed his body against the old man's leg again. Mr. Ryan, Maya said gently, did anyone ever come to your home to help you with money after your wife passed? Matthew nodded. Mr. Harding. Maya typed the name. Thomas Harding? Yes, ma'am. Harding Financial Solutions. He came to the trailer, said he worked with veterans, said he could stop the hospital calls. The printer behind them clicked and spat out a page. Maya grabbed it and scanned the first lines. Harding Financial Solutions. Bremerton Marina District. Estate planning. Reverse mortgage consulting. Senior financial care. Her stomach turned at the last phrase. Senior financial care, she whispered. That's a soft name for a sharp knife. Matthew looked confused. He seemed kind. Wore a nice suit. Brought coffee cake from a bakery. Told me his father respected Navy men. Did he explain Apex Holdings? No. Never. Did he explain that money would be withdrawn every month? Matthew stared at the floor. I don't remember. Maybe he did, and I didn't understand. Martha handled the bills. After she died, I just signed where he pointed. Maya's voice softened. Grief is not consent, Mr. Ryan. Behind her, Marcus shifted. His phone buzzed once. Maya heard it. He did not reach for it right away, and that made her notice even more. Answer it, she said. It can wait, can it? Marcus met her eyes. For a second, something uneasy passed between them. Then he pulled the phone from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and turned it face down. Maya saw only one word before he hit it. Whitaker. Her breath caught, but she kept her face still. At the plaintiff's table, Carl Benson was whispering with Gordon Finch again. Gordon did not look worried anymore. He looked patient, the way a man looked when he believed the ending had already been arranged. Maya printed the Apex registry page and placed it beside Matthew's bank records. She circled the repeated withdrawals with a red pen. $200, 100, 75, 50, always within 24 hours of the pension deposit. This is pattern behavior, she said. Marcus's voice dropped. Maya, be careful what you say in open court. There it was again. Be careful. Slow down. Don't push. She turned to him. Why are you more afraid of me saying it than of it being true? Marcus did not answer. Judge Whitaker watched from the bench. His face was still, but his fingers tapped once beside the gavel. Maya carried the pages forward. This time she stayed just beyond his reach. Your Honor, she said, and hated how small her own voice sounded. She was still frightened. Her ribs ached. Her fingers burned. But she made herself continue. The company taking money from Mr. Ryan's account is not his diner, not his pharmacy, and not his mortgage holder. It appears to be a third-party entity connected to financial services. Whitaker's jaw tightened. Connected how? Maya held up the registry page. Apex Holdings LLC is registered out of state. Mr. Ryan says he has never heard of it. He did, however, sign documents with Thomas Harding of Harding Financial Solutions after his wife died. Carl Benson scoffed. What does that have to do with my diner? Maya turned toward him. Everything. If his money was taken before he could pay you. Carl folded his arms. That's not my problem. Matthew flinched at the words. Maya looked at Carl for a long moment. No, Mr. Benson. That may be the first honest thing you've said today. A few people in the gallery murmured. Whitaker struck the gavel. Miss Williams? She lowered her head slightly. I'm sorry, Your Honor. She was sorry for the tone, not the truth. Whitaker leaned back. You have found nothing but confusion. Elderly people misunderstand bank records all the time. Matthew raised his head. I may be old, Your Honor, but I know when I've been left with 22 cents. Whitaker's eyes flashed. You will speak when asked. Ranger growled softly. Marcus whispered, Ranger, down. But the dog stayed alert. Maya felt the room shifting. The people who had laughed or looked away earlier were now watching the papers, the judge, the old man. Doubt had entered the courtroom, and doubt was dangerous to men who needed silence. Whitaker saw it too. This court will not turn a simple debt matter into a circus, he said. Mr. Ryan owes money. That remains undisputed. Maya clutched the papers tighter. Then, allow the record to reflect that Mr. Ryan's non-payment may have been caused by unauthorized withdrawals. No, Your Honor, please, no. The word came down like a door closing. Matthew took a trembling breath. Sir, may I ask one thing? Whitaker glared at him. Make it brief. Matthew pointed at the pages in Maya's hand. If that company is honest, why won't anyone let her ask about it? The courtroom went silent again. For the first time, Whitaker did not answer quickly. Then the double doors opened. A man in a navy suit stepped inside as if he had been expected. He was tall, silver-haired, polished, with a leather briefcase in one hand and a soft smile that did not reach his eyes. Marcus went still. Matthew whispered, That's him. Maya turned. Thomas Harding walked down the aisle toward the front of the courtroom. Your Honor, Harding said smoothly, I understand there has been some confusion regarding one of my clients. Maya looked from Harding to Whitaker. Whitaker's expression relaxed for the first time all morning, and that told Maya more than any bank record could. Thomas Harding did not hurry. Men like him never did. He walked down the aisle with the calm of someone who believed every room would eventually make space for him. His navy suit fit perfectly. His silver hair was combed back. A gold watch flashed under his cuff. He carried no fear on his face, only concern, polished and rehearsed. Matthew seemed to shrink when he saw him. Maya noticed. Harding stopped near the front and nodded to the bench. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. I was contacted about Mr. Ryan's confusion, and I thought it best to clarify matters before this becomes more embarrassing for him. Maya's stomach tightened. For him? She asked quietly. Harding turned to her with a polite smile. Miss Williams, I assume? She did not answer. He looked at her bandaged hand, then at the papers she held. I see you've been digging through documents that may be outside your role. Whitaker leaned back. Mr. Harding, do you know the defendant? Yes, Your Honor. Matthew Ryan is a client of Harding Financial Solutions. After his wife passed, my firm helped him arrange his reverse mortgage and payment structure. We have done everything properly. Matthew lifted his head. You said I'd have enough left to live on. Harding softened his voice. Matthew, grief can make details difficult. You were under tremendous emotional strain. I know what you told me. I'm sure you believe that. The words were gentle, but they cut deep. Maya heard the trick in them. Harding was not calling Matthew a liar. He was calling him old. Maya stepped forward. Mr. Harding, did you explain Apex Holdings LLC to him? Harding's smile remained. Apex provides administrative support. Why is Apex taking money from his account every month? Fees for ongoing management. Management of what? Harding's eyes flicked toward Whitaker, only for a second. His financial arrangement. Maya held up the statement. $200. 100. 75. 50. Always after his pension deposit. That is not management. That is draining. Carl Benson scoffed. This has nothing to do with me. Maya turned. It has everything to do with you if you brought him here knowing he had been emptied out first. Carl's face flushed. I didn't know anything. From the back, Gordon Finch said. Careful, Carl. Don't answer questions from a clerk. Maya looked at Gordon. You seem very interested in who answers what. Gordon smiled. I enjoy courtrooms. They teach people consequences. Matthew stared at Harding. Did you take my money? Harding's expression tightened. I protected you from losing your home. My lights were cut off last week. That is unfortunate. I ate soup on credit because I had nothing left. Harding sighed, turning slightly toward the gallery like a man appealing to reasonable people. This is exactly what I mean, Your Honor. Mr. Ryan is a decorated man, no doubt, but he is elderly, grieving, and confused. He signed legal documents. Now that he dislikes the results, others are encouraging him to imagine a conspiracy. Maya's voice trembled, but she forced it out. No one encouraged him to have 22 cents. Whitaker's eyes snapped to her. Miss Williams. She lowered her head a little. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but someone should say it plainly. You have said enough. No, Matthew whispered. Everyone looked at him. The old man had one hand on the table, trying to hold himself upright. Ranger stood beside him, silent and watchful. Matthew looked at Whitaker. Please, sir, let her ask. If I signed something wrong, I'll take the blame. But if someone used Martha's death to steal from me, I need to know before I die. For the first time, Maya saw several people in the gallery look away in shame. Whitaker did not. Touching, he said, but irrelevant. Maya's fear returned so strongly she almost stepped back. Her ribs hurt. Her cut hand throbbed. The judge had already shoved her papers away once. He had made it clear what he could do. Still, she lifted the Apex statement. Your Honor, I request that the court pause any custody order until these withdrawals can be reviewed by the bank or Adult Protective Services. Harding gave a soft laugh. Adult Protective Services? That is extreme. So is a 90-year-old man offering his wife's ring to stay out of jail. Whitaker struck the gavel. Enough. Maya flinched. Harding placed his briefcase on the table and opened it. If it helps, I have copies of Mr. Ryan's signed agreements. Page 47 includes authorization for administrative services. He removed a thick stack of papers and laid them out with practiced ease. Maya looked at the pages. Page 47. Harding smiled. Yes, buried where a grieving widower would never notice it. Buried? Harding repeated. Miss Williams, contracts have pages. Adults are expected to read them. Matthew closed his eyes. Maya's face softened with pain. He had just buried his wife. Harding's smile faded. And I helped him avoid foreclosure. Whitaker nodded. The document is signed? It is. Then this court has no basis to delay. Maya stared at the judge. You were ready to jail him over $86, but you won't take 15 minutes to question the company taking hundreds from his pension? Whitaker's face darkened. Careful. Maya's voice fell almost to a whisper. I am careful, Your Honor. That's why I'm scared. The honesty of it quieted the room. She continued anyway. I am scared because every time I touch the truth in this case, someone more powerful tells me to stop. Marcus looked down at his phone. A message lit the screen. Keep her on Harding. Nothing else. The sender was Whitaker. Marcus turned the screen dark. but not before Ranger looked up at him. As if the dog could smell guilt, Whitaker gathered himself. This court will reconvene tomorrow morning. If Miss Williams has no admissible proof beyond suspicion, Mr. Ryan will be remanded. Matthew's face went pale. Your Honor, Maya said. He has no heat at home. Not my concern. He has no food? Then perhaps he should not have incurred debt. Harding closed his briefcase. Gordon Finch stood in the back row, watching the medal and ring still lying on the table. Maya stepped to Matthew and carefully picked up the silver star and Martha's ring. She placed them back into the wooden box and closed the lid. These are not evidence of debt, she said softly. They are evidence of what he already paid. Matthew's eyes filled. Whitaker's voice came down cold. Tomorrow, Miss Williams. Maya held Matthew's box in both hands. Tomorrow meant she had one night to find the truth. And, as Harding walked out with Gordon following close behind, Maya finally understood that the courtroom had never been the place where this case would be solved. It was only the place where the trap had been set. The courthouse emptied slowly, but Maya stayed. By 6:30, the public hallway outside courtroom 2 was quiet except for the hum of old lights and the soft ticking of rain against the windows. The janitor pushed a mop bucket past the doors without looking in. Somewhere downstairs, a vending machine dropped a soda with a heavy clunk. Maya sat in the records room with Matthew's bank statements spread across the table. Her ribs still ached from where she had struck the counsel rail. Her cut hand burned under Matthew's handkerchief, but she did not remove it. The old cotton cloth reminded her why she was still there. Matthew sat across from her in a metal chair, both hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee Marcus had brought from the vending area. He had eaten 2 packs of crackers and half a stale granola bar. Color had returned to his face, but only a little. Marcus stood near the door with Ranger. He kept checking the hallway. Maya noticed. You waiting for someone? She asked. Marcus looked back. Just making sure we're not interrupted. By who? He paused. Anyone. Maya held his gaze for a second, then turned back to the computer. She had pulled every small debt case from the last 4 years that involved a senior veteran, a reverse mortgage, and Harding Financial Solutions. At first, the search looked thin. Then she added Apex Holdings LLC. The screen filled. Maya stopped breathing for a moment. Oh, Lord, she whispered. Matthew looked up. What is it? She clicked the first file, then the next, then the next. 17 names. All men over 80. Most widowed. All veterans. All had been brought before Judge Whitaker over small debts. Medical co-pays, utility arrears, pharmacy charges, grocery tabs, diner bills. After each court appearance, Thomas Harding appeared in their financial records. Soon after that, Apex Holdings began withdrawing money. Maya printed the list. The machine rattled in the corner like it was trying to warn them. Marcus stepped closer. His face tightened when he saw the names. Maya turned the page toward Matthew. Do you recognize any of them? Matthew adjusted his glasses with trembling fingers. He read slowly, lips moving around the names. Then his hand stopped. Henry Caldwell, he said. His voice changed. Maya leaned forward. You know him? Matthew nodded. Army. Korea. Chosin Reservoir. Toughest man I ever met. He carried a wounded Marine 2 miles in freezing weather, with shrapnel in his own leg. He touched the name on the page like it was a living thing. Henry wouldn't fall for some cheap trick, Matthew said. If they got him, they knew exactly where to press. Maya felt a chill move through her. Mr. Ryan. All these men passed through Whitaker's courtroom. Marcus looked down. Maya saw it. Marcus. He did not answer. She kept her voice low. You already knew something was wrong. I suspected. That's not an answer. He rubbed the back of his neck. Maya, this is bigger than Harding. Then say what you know. I can't. Not yet. Matthew looked between them. Son, if you know something that can help those men, now would be the time. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Maya pushed back her chair. Fine. Then I'll ask the men myself. Marcus looked alarmed. Tonight? Tomorrow morning Whitaker wants to put Mr. Ryan in custody. That gives us tonight. Matthew tried to stand. I'm going with you. No, Maya said gently. You need rest. The old man's eyes hardened in a way that made him look suddenly younger. Ma'am, If Henry Caldwell is on that list, I'm going. Maya wanted to argue, but she saw the decision in his face. Not pride this time. Duty. Within 20 minutes, they were in Maya's old Buick, heading south through the rain toward Tacoma. Marcus drove his truck behind them with Ranger. The highway shone black beneath the headlights. Bremerton faded behind them. All wet pavement, shipyard lights, and cold wind off Puget Sound. Matthew sat in the passenger seat with the printed list in his lap. My wife used to say I kept too many old names in my head, he said quietly. Birthdays, units, call signs, men I served with for 2 weeks 50 years ago. Maya kept her eyes on the road. Sounds like love to me. Matthew looked out the window. Sounds like ghosts. Most nights. The words stayed with her until they reached Tacoma. Henry Caldwell's house sat at the end of a narrow street lined with wet leaves and old pickup trucks. It was a small post-war bungalow with peeling white paint, a sagging porch, and an American flag hanging limp in the rain. No lights glowed inside. Matthew stared at the house. No power. Maya parked at the curb. Marcus pulled in behind her. Ranger jumped down from the truck and stood alert. They climbed the steps slowly. Matthew insisted on knocking himself. 3 firm knocks. Nothing. Then a voice from inside, rough and suspicious. Go away. Matthew leaned close to the door. Henry Caldwell? A pause. Who's asking? Matthew Ryan, Navy UDT. I came with Maya Williams from Kitsap County Court. Locks shifted. The door opened 2 inches, held by a chain. A pair of tired eyes stared out from the dark. I don't want court people, Henry said. I told Harding I've got nothing left. Maya spoke softly. Mr. Caldwell, we are not here to collect anything. Henry's eyes moved to Matthew. Matthew raised one trembling hand. Shoson, he said. Henry froze. Matthew continued. You once told me cold could become a kind of fire if it stayed in the bones long enough. The chain came off. Henry Caldwell stood in the doorway wearing 2 sweaters and a pair of old pajama pants. He was 88, thin as a rail, with white stubble on his jaw and anger keeping him upright. Inside, the house was colder than outside. Maya could see her breath. Pill bottles sat on a side table. A stack of unpaid bills lay beside a dead lamp. Henry looked at the printed list in Matthew's hand. You're on it too? Matthew nodded. Apex Holdings. Henry laughed once, bitterly. That parasite. Maya stepped closer. What happened? Henry's face hardened. Judge Whitaker dragged me into court over a hospital bill. Made me feel like a thief in front of strangers. Harding came after. Said he could save my house. Then Gordon Finch showed up to value my belongings. Gordon Finch? Maya asked. Henry pointed toward the fireplace mantel. A pale square in the dust, marked where something had once rested. He took my father's gold watch. Said it was a processing fee. My father carried that watch through France in 1944. Matthew closed his eyes. Henry's voice broke, then turned sharp again. The judge scared me. Harding signed me. Finch stripped me. Maya wrote the words down. Behind her, Marcus stepped out onto the porch. Ranger followed him. Through the window, Maya saw Marcus bend over, one hand on the railing, like he might be sick. She went outside. Rain tapped softly on the porch roof. Marcus did not look at her. I didn't know it looked like this. Maya's voice was tired. That's the privilege of reading pain in a file. You don't have to feel how cold the house is. His phone buzzed. He looked at it. Maya saw the name before he turned the screen away. Whitaker. Marcus did not answer. For the first time, Maya understood that his silence was not fear alone. It was loyalty. And maybe, if there was still mercy left in him, it was beginning to crack. Marcus stood on Henry Caldwell's porch, with the phone buzzing in his hand. Whitaker's name glowed on the screen. For a few seconds, Marcus just stared at it while rain drummed on the porch roof, and Ranger stood beside him, watching his face like he could smell the guilt rising through his skin. Maya looked at the phone, then at him. Are you going to answer him? Marcus's jaw tightened. It's late. That wasn't my question. The phone stopped buzzing. Then, almost immediately, a message appeared. Where are you? Marcus turned the screen down. Maya's voice dropped. How does Judge Whitaker know to call you right now? He did not answer. Inside the house, Henry's voice carried from the living room. Tell her the truth, son. Secrets are how men like them keep the lights off in houses like mine. Marcus closed his eyes. Matthew stood just inside the doorway, one hand on the frame to steady himself. The old Navy cap was tucked under his arm. His face looked tired, but his eyes were clear. Marcus, Matthew said quietly, if you're mixed up in this, now is the time to step out of it. Marcus looked at the old man, then at Henry's dark living room. No heat, no lights, pill bottles on the table, a war photograph on the wall, a blank square on the mantel where a father's gold watch used to sit. His phone buzzed again. This time, he answered. Whitaker's voice came through sharp and low. Where is she? Marcus did not speak. Marcus, I'm at Henry Caldwell's house. Silence. Then Whitaker said, You were told to keep her away from Caldwell. Maya went still. Marcus swallowed. How many, Uncle Harold? Maya's eyes widened. Matthew's hand tightened around the doorframe. Whitaker's voice changed. Colder now. Watch your tone. How many men? You don't understand what you're asking. I understand enough. Ryan. Caldwell. 17 names. Apex. Harding. Finch. Whitaker exhaled slowly. Men who were already drowning. I merely arranged the current. Marcus looked like the words had punched the breath out of him. Maya whispered, Put it on, speaker. Marcus did. Whitaker continued, unaware or unconcerned. Do not get sentimental now. Harding takes the risk. Finch handles the assets. The court applies pressure. That is all. These old men sign because they are desperate, and desperation is not my crime. Henry stepped into the hall, shaking with rage. You son of a... Marcus ended the call before Henry could finish. For a moment, no one moved. The rain filled the silence. Maya's face was pale. Uncle Harold? Marcus looked at her. He did not try to lie anymore. Judge Whitaker is my mother's brother. Matthew closed his eyes. Maya took one slow step back from Marcus. You've been reporting to him. Marcus nodded. How long? Since the first hearing. Her voice broke a little. Since Matthew put his medal on that table? Marcus looked down. Yes. Maya's fear turned into hurt, and the hurt was worse than anger. You stood beside me while he insulted me, while he hurt my hand, while he almost sent that man to jail. I know. No, Marcus. You watched. Ranger whined softly, but Marcus did not move toward the dog. Henry pointed a trembling finger at him. Your family did this? Marcus shook his head, but not in denial, in shame. I didn't know all of it. Maya's eyes hardened. But you knew enough. The words landed, and Marcus accepted them. Yes, he said. I knew enough to be guilty. Matthew stepped forward slowly. Then, decide what kind of guilty man you want to be. Marcus looked at him. Matthew's voice was weak, but steady. The kind who keeps helping them? Or the kind who finally tells the truth? Marcus's phone buzzed again. Another message from Whitaker. Bring her back. No more mistakes. Marcus stared at it. Then he turned the phone off. Maya watched him carefully. What does he not want me to find? Marcus breathed in, then let it out. The court files are not the center. Harding isn't the top. Finch isn't either. Then who is? Marcus looked at her. You already know. Maya's face tightened. Whitaker. Henry sank into his chair. God help us. Marcus went on. There's a ledger. I saw it years ago in my uncle's study. I thought it was campaign donor notes or private case references. Black cover. Handwritten. Locked in his home safe. Maya's voice was quiet. The real book. Marcus nodded. Finch has something too, but that's not it. If my uncle is scared, it's because that ledger connects him to all of it. Can you get it? Marcus hesitated. Maya's injured hand was still wrapped in Matthew's handkerchief. She lifted it slightly. Do not ask me to trust you. Not after tonight. I'm not. Then what are you asking? A chance to stop being useful to him. No one spoke. At last, Matthew reached into the wooden box Maya had returned to him and touched the silver star inside. In war, a man can freeze because he's afraid. That doesn't make him a coward. Staying frozen after he knows men are dying, That's when it becomes cowardice. Marcus nodded once. Slowly, Maya looked toward Henry's cold house, then back at Marcus. If you run to Whitaker, Matthew goes to jail tomorrow. Henry stays in the dark. The other men stay buried in that list. I know. And if you help us, you may lose your family name. Marcus gave a bitter, small laugh. Maybe it was never worth keeping. Maya did not soften. Then prove it. Marcus looked at Ranger. The dog stepped closer and pressed his head against Marcus's thigh, loyal even to a man who had failed. I'll go tonight, Marcus said. His house is on Marine Drive. He keeps the safe in the study behind a shelf of law books. Maya's eyes sharpened. You know the code? I used to. If he hasn't changed it, Henry coughed. And if he has? Marcus looked toward the rain. Then I find another way. Maya shook her head. No heroics. No breaking in. We need evidence, not another crime he can use to bury us. Marcus met her eyes. I still have a key. Family emergency key. He gave it to me years ago. Why would he trust you with that? Marcus's face tightened. Because until tonight, he had every reason to. That answer stayed in the room like a confession. Maya gathered the printed list and Henry's statement. Matthew placed his box back inside his coat. Henry insisted on giving them a copy of the old receipt Gordon Finch had left when he took the gold watch. At the door, Henry gripped Matthew's hand. You came back for me, Henry said. Matthew's eyes shone. Should have come sooner. You came. That was all, Henry said. But it was enough. Outside, the rain had thinned to a mist. Maya stood beside her Buick, while Marcus prepared to leave in his truck. She did not thank him. She only said, Tomorrow morning, Whitaker expects me to walk into court with suspicion. Marcus opened his truck door. Ranger jumped in. Maya continued, Bring me truth. Marcus looked at the dark road ahead. I will, he said. Then he drove into the wet Tacoma night, no longer following Maya to watch her, but leaving her to betray the man who had taught him how to hide. Marcus drove north with Ranger in the passenger seat and the wipers beating time against the windshield. He did not turn the radio on. He did not call Maya. He did not answer the 3 messages that came from Judge Whitaker before he reached Bremerton. Each one looked colder than the last. Call me. Where are you? Do not make me regret trusting you. Marcus tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. Ranger looked at it, then back at him. I know, Marcus muttered. I should have done this sooner. The dog gave a soft huff. Not forgiveness, not judgment, just presence. Whitaker's house sat on a rise above Marine Drive, a wide white home with black shutters, trimmed hedges, and a view of the dark water beyond the trees. Marcus had spent Thanksgivings there, birthdays, campaign dinners, quiet Sunday afternoons where his uncle spoke about duty while men in expensive coats laughed over bourbon in the study. As a boy, Marcus had thought the house smelled like success. Now it smelled like varnish, old money, and rot. He parked at the end of the drive, away from the garage lights. The rain had faded into mist. The windows were dark, except for one lamp burning in the upstairs hall. Whitaker was not home. Marcus knew the judge would still be at the courthouse, or in chambers, trying to put out whatever damage Maya had started. He took the emergency key from the magnetic lockbox under the rear steps. His hand shook as he slid it into the back door. Inside, the house was too quiet. Ranger entered first, nose low, moving through the kitchen with slow caution. Marcus followed, closing the door behind him. He passed the breakfast nook where his aunt used to keep tulips in a glass vase. She had died 8 years ago, and Whitaker had never removed the vase. He only stopped putting flowers in it. The hallway walls were lined with photographs. Judge Whitaker with county commissioners. Judge Whitaker at a Veterans Day breakfast. Judge Whitaker shaking hands with men in uniform. Judge Whitaker smiling beside a folded flag. Marcus stopped at one photo. His uncle stood with a group of elderly veterans, one hand over his heart. Under the frame was a brass plate, honoring those who served. Marcus almost laughed. Instead, he kept walking. The study door was locked. He still had the small brass key on his ring, the one Whitaker had given him years ago when Marcus had helped manage donor files during a re-election campaign. Family protects family, Whitaker had told him then. Marcus opened the door. The study was exactly as he remembered it. Dark wood shelves, leather chairs, a framed law degree, a glass case of civic awards, a neat row of legal books that looked untouched by human hands. Ranger stopped at the threshold and let out a low growl. Marcus whispered, "Yeah, I feel it too." The safe was behind the second shelf from the left. Marcus pulled out 3 heavy volumes of Washington case law and pressed the hidden latch. The shelf clicked and swung open. There it was, a gray steel safe. Marcus stared at the keypad. He tried the old code first. His aunt's birthday. Red light. He breathed out. Then he tried the year Whitaker first took the bench. Red light. His pulse climbed. "Come on," he whispered. He looked around the study. On the desk sat Whitaker's silver letter opener, a fountain pen, and a framed photograph of Whitaker's father in a judge's robe. The Whitaker name had been treated like a family Bible in that house. Every son, every nephew, every friend expected to bow before it. Marcus looked back at the keypad and entered a number he had heard his uncle say many times. The year of his first major ruling. Green light. The safe clicked. Marcus closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened it. Inside were stacks of cash, sealed envelopes, property forms, copies of court orders, and several folders labeled only with initials. At the bottom sat a black leather ledger. He knew it before he touched it. The real book. Marcus lifted it out and set it on the desk. Ranger stood beside him, ears forward. The first page had no title, only columns, written in Whitaker's precise handwriting. Name, age, service, vulnerability, debt pressure, asset, status. Marcus turned the pages. Henry Caldwell, age 88, Army, widower, medical bill pressure, gold watch recovered, another name, another veteran, another asset, Purple Heart, Bible, house deed, pension access, widow deceased, no children, limited mobility, confused but compliant. Marcus felt sick. Then he found Matthew Ryan. Matthew Ryan, age 90, Navy UDT, widow deceased, food debt pressure effective, Silver Star recoverable, trailer title pending. For a moment, the room tilted. He saw Matthew in the courtroom, trembling as he placed the Silver Star beside Martha's ring. He heard Whitaker's voice calling him a freeloader. He saw Maya bleeding, still trying to hold up the bank records with a shaking hand. Marcus whispered, "God forgive me." Behind him, a voice answered from the doorway. "He won't." Marcus turned. Judge Whitaker stood in the study entrance, still wearing his black overcoat, his face shadowed and calm. Ranger stepped in front of Marcus and growled. Whitaker looked at the dog, then at the open safe. "You disappoint me." Marcus put one hand on the ledger. "I know what you did." Whitaker walked into the room slowly. "You know what I allowed you to see. You used those men. I managed outcomes. You destroyed them." Whitaker's eyes hardened. They were already collapsing. "I made sure their assets went somewhere useful before the state, hospitals, or distant relatives swallowed everything. They were people. They were liabilities." Marcus stared at him, stunned by how easily the words came. Whitaker pointed to the ledger. "Put it back." "No. You think that woman will protect you?" Whitaker asked. "Maya Williams is a clerk with a temper and a history of resentment. When this is over, she will lose her job, and you will lose everything I built for you." Marcus's voice shook. "You built this on starving old men." Whitaker stepped closer. "I built a system. Harding was careful. Finch was useful. Benson was cheap. You were supposed to be loyal." Marcus looked down at the ledger. "I was. Then remember who your family is." Marcus thought of Henry's cold house, Matthew's handkerchief around Maya's bleeding fingers, the silver star on the table. "My family," he said, "is not worth more than the truth." Whitaker moved fast, reaching for the ledger. Ranger lunged forward with a bark that shook the room. He did not bite. He only placed himself between Whitaker and Marcus, teeth bared, body rigid. Whitaker froze. Marcus grabbed the ledger, shoved it inside his coat, and backed toward the door. "You walk out with that," Whitaker said, "and I will bury you with her." Marcus looked at his uncle one last time. "No," he said. "Tomorrow, you answer for them." Then he turned and ran into the misty night, Ranger at his side, carrying the book that could finally make 17 forgotten men impossible to ignore. Marcus did not drive back to the courthouse. He knew Whitaker would call security, then Harding, then anyone else who still owed him loyalty. If Marcus went anywhere obvious, the ledger would never reach Maya. So he drove through the wet back roads outside Bremerton with Ranger in the passenger seat, and the black book pressed under his coat like a second heartbeat. His phone rang again and again. Whitaker, Harding, unknown number. He turned it off and kept driving. By the time he reached the small church off Kitsap Way, the rain had slowed to a cold mist. The parking lot was empty, except for Maya's old Buick, under a flickering light. Matthew sat inside the passenger seat, wrapped in his coat, awake and watching. Maya stood near the church steps with a paper cup of coffee in her uninjured hand. Her other hand was still wrapped in Matthew's white handkerchief. She looked smaller in the dark, not weak, worn down. When Marcus stepped out of the truck, she did not move toward him. Ranger jumped down and went to Matthew's door first. The old veteran lowered the window and touched the dog's head. "Good boy," Matthew whispered. "You brought him back." Marcus walked to Maya and stopped several feet away. He pulled the black ledger from his coat. "I got it." Maya stared at the book, then at his face. "Did he see you?" "Yes." Her breath caught. "Marcus, he came home early. He tried to stop me." "Did you hurt him?" "No." Ranger stopped him from grabbing the book. "That's all." Maya took the ledger but did not thank him. She opened it under the parking lot light. The pages were thick and cream-colored, filled with neat handwriting. She read the first few lines, then the next. Her face changed. Matthew Ryan, age 90, Navy UDT, widow deceased, food debt pressure effective, Silver Star recoverable, trailer title pending. She closed her eyes for a second. Matthew opened the car door. "Is my name in there?" Maya looked at him, and the answer was already on her face. "Yes," she said softly. Matthew stepped out slowly, one hand on the door for balance. "Read it." Maya hesitated. "Mr. Ryan, read it, please." Her voice shook as she read the line aloud. Matthew did not speak. He only looked down at the wet pavement, as if he could see the exact spot where his life had been priced. "My trailer," he whispered. "My medal. Martha's ring next, I suppose." Maya's throat tightened. They had a plan for all of it. Marcus stood with his hands at his sides. "There are 17 names." Maya turned the pages. Henry Caldwell, the gold watch, medical bill pressure, asset recovered. Others followed. Navy, Army, Marines, Air Force. Men who had once worn uniforms, now reduced to columns. Vulnerability, debt pressure, asset, status. "This isn't just evidence," Maya said. "This is a hunting log." Matthew looked at Marcus. "Your uncle wrote this?" Marcus nodded. "His handwriting, his safe, his system." Maya's eyes hardened. "Then tomorrow he cannot sit on that bench." Marcus gave a bitter breath. "He'll try. Let him." Her voice was still quiet, still carrying fear, but something had settled inside it now. She was not fearless. She was past the point where fear could stop her. They moved into the church basement, where an older pastor named Reverend Paulson let them use a folding table and the copy machine. He was in his late 60s, gray-haired, and had served as a Navy chaplain years before. He did not ask many questions. When he saw Matthew's cap and Maya's bandaged hand, he simply unlocked the office and said, "Make the copies you need. Coffee's on the counter." Maya worked quickly. She copied every page of the ledger. Marcus photographed each page with a separate camera, then placed the files on a flash drive. He wrote a short statement about where the ledger came from and how Whitaker had ordered him to monitor Maya. His hand shook when he signed it. Maya saw, but said nothing. Matthew sat in a folding chair near the wall, the wooden box resting on his lap. Ranger lay at his feet. Every few minutes, Matthew opened the box and looked at the Silver Star, as if making sure it was still there. Near midnight, Maya spread the copied pages into 3 piles. "One for the court record," she said. "One for the prosecutor. One for the State Judicial Conduct Office. Marcus nodded. And the original? Maya placed both hands on the ledger. The original goes into that courtroom with me. Matthew looked up. He won't let you speak. He didn't let me speak today either. He hurt you. Maya glanced at her hand. The cuts had stopped bleeding, but the skin throbbed. Her ribs still burnt every time she breathed too deeply. I know. Matthew's voice softened. Then why go back? Maya looked at him for a long moment. Because my father once stood in a courtroom with papers no one would read, she said. He was a veteran too. A black man who came home believing the law would see him as a citizen. It didn't. It saw him as a signature on a loan he didn't understand. I was too young then, too scared. I watched him lose his house while everyone acted like it was his fault. Matthew's eyes filled with sorrow. Maya touched the ledger. I cannot change what happened to him, but I can walk into that room tomorrow and make sure they read what happened to you. Marcus lowered his head. I helped him, he said. Maybe not with my hands, but I helped him by staying quiet. Maya looked at him. Yes, you did. He accepted it. I'll testify. You will, she said. And you will not make yourself the hero. I know. You will tell the truth. Even the parts that make you look guilty. Marcus nodded. All of it. Before dawn, they drove back toward Bremerton. Maya had the original ledger in a canvas tote beside her seat. Matthew sat next to her, his wooden box in his lap. Marcus followed in his truck, Ranger watching the road from the passenger seat. The courthouse appeared through the gray morning like a stone ship in the rain. A small crowd had already gathered outside. A few reporters, several veterans in old caps, people from the diner, court staff, whispering near the steps. Maya parked and sat still for a moment. Matthew looked at her. You're scared? Yes, she said. So am I. That made her smile faintly. Marcus walked up to her window. His face was pale but steady. He's inside. Whitaker. I saw his car. Maya picked up the tote bag. Matthew opened his wooden box and removed the silver star. Instead of leaving it inside, he pinned it carefully to his coat with shaking fingers. Maya watched him. Are you sure? Matthew straightened as much as his body allowed. If he wants to price it, he said, he can look at it while we prove what it cost. Together, they walked toward the courthouse doors. This time, Maya did not walk in front of Marcus. She made him walk beside her. The courthouse doors opened with a groan that sounded too loud in the morning rain. Maya stepped inside first, with Matthew on her right and Marcus on her left. Ranger walked close to Marcus, silent and alert. The canvas tote hung from Maya's shoulder. Inside it was the black ledger, wrapped in a plain manila folder, as if something that dangerous could be made ordinary by office supplies. People turned as they entered. Court staff stopped whispering. A few older veterans stood near the wall, their caps pulled low, their eyes fixed on Matthew's silver star. Someone murmured, "That's him." Matthew heard it, but he did not look away. His hand trembled against his cane, yet the metal on his coat held the light. Maya leaned close. You, all right? No, he said softly. But I'm here. That was enough. Inside, courtroom 2, Judge Whitaker was already on the bench. He looked rested, cold, prepared. Thomas Harding sat at the front in his navy suit, a leather briefcase at his feet. Gordon Finch sat behind him, pretending to read a folded newspaper. Carl Benson stood near the plaintiff's table, jaw tight, eyes avoiding Matthew. Whitaker looked at Maya's bandaged hand, then at Marcus, then at the tote bag. For half a second, his face changed. Then the mask returned. "This court is now in session," he said. "Mr. Ryan, step forward." Matthew moved slowly to the defendant's table. Maya stood beside him. Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "Miss Williams, you are not counsel." "No, Your Honor," Maya said. Her voice was quiet, and everyone could hear the fear in it. "But I have evidence relevant to this proceeding." Whitaker struck the gavel once. "You have already been warned. This matter concerns unpaid debt to Carl's Harbor Diner. Nothing more." Matthew looked up. "Your Honor, may I speak?" "You may not," Maya swallowed. "Please, Your Honor, before any order is entered, this court needs to review documents showing that Mr. Ryan's inability to pay was caused by financial exploitation. Harding rose smoothly. Your Honor, this is becoming harassment. Mr. Ryan signed valid agreements with my firm. Miss Williams is inflaming a simple matter because she does not understand financial administration. Maya gripped the tote strap tighter. Whitaker looked down at her. Do you have anything new, Miss Williams? Or are we repeating yesterday's performance? Marcus stepped forward. Yes, he said. Whitaker's eyes cut to him. Mr. Reed, return to your seat. Marcus did not move. The room went still. Whitaker's voice lowered. Now. Marcus's face was pale, but he kept standing. I can't do that, Uncle Harold. A sharp murmur spread across the courtroom. Maya saw Harding turn his head quickly. Gordon Finch lowered his newspaper. Carl Benson's mouth opened slightly. Whitaker's fingers closed around the gavel. You will address the court properly. Marcus nodded once. Judge Whitaker is my uncle. He placed me near Maya Williams to watch her investigation and report back to him. A woman in the gallery gasped. Maya did not look at Marcus. She kept her eyes on Whitaker. Whitaker's face hardened. This is absurd, Marcus continued, voice rough but steady. I reported when she found Apex Holdings. I reported when she connected it to Harding Financial Solutions. I was told to keep her focused on Harding and Finch and away from Judge Whitaker's own records. Harding stood. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Whitaker slammed the gavel. Mr. Reed, one more word, and I will have you removed. Maya reached into the tote with her injured hand. Her fingers hurt as they closed around the ledger, but she pulled it out and held it against her chest. Your Honor, she said, almost pleading now. Please don't make this harder than it already is. There are 17 names in this book. Whitaker went very still. Maya opened the ledger. This came from your safe, Marcus said. The courtroom erupted. Whitaker shouted, Order! No one quieted at first. The bailiff looked uncertain, caught between the judge's command and the words that had just been spoken. Several veterans in the back stood up. One of them said, Let her read it. Whitaker pointed the gavel toward Maya. That book is private property. Maya's voice trembled. So were their pensions. So were their medals. So were their homes. Whitaker's face flushed. You do not know what you are holding. Yes, Maya said. I do. She turned the ledger toward the courtroom. Name, age, branch of service, vulnerability, debt pressure, asset, status. Those are the columns. Harding grabbed his briefcase. This proceeding is tainted. Marcus moved toward the aisle, blocking him without touching him. Ranger stood beside Marcus and stared at Harding until the man stopped. Maya read the first name. Henry Caldwell, age 88, Army, widower, medical bill pressure, gold watch recovered. Henry Caldwell stood in the back of the courtroom, leaning on a cane. He had come in quietly before the session began. His face twisted, but he did not look away. Maya turned another page. Matthew Ryan, age 90, Navy UDT, widow deceased, food debt pressure effective, Silver Star recoverable, trailer title pending. Matthew's head bowed. The words were worse spoken aloud. They turned a private humiliation into a public crime. Maya looked at Whitaker. He was never just a debtor to you. He was inventory. Whitaker rose from the bench. Enough, but for the first time, his voice did not fill the room. Maya's eyes shone with fear and pain, but she kept reading. 17 elderly veterans, all brought through this court on small debts, all connected afterward to Harding Financial Solutions, all showing withdrawals through Apex Holdings, several with property or personal military items marked as recovered. Carl Benson backed away from the table. Gordon Finch stood, then sat again when two veterans near the aisle turned toward him. Harding pointed at Marcus. He stole that ledger. Marcus nodded. Yes, from a safe used to hide crimes. Whitaker's face went white with rage. You ungrateful boy. Marcus flinched, but did not step back. I was grateful. That's how you used me. Maya closed the ledger halfway, keeping her hand on the page with Matthew's name. Your Honor, she said. Her voice soft now, almost broken. Yesterday you called him a freeloader. You made him put his medal and his wife's ring on a table to beg for freedom. But this book proves he was not running from a debt. He was being pushed into one. Whitaker gripped the bench. Matthew slowly stood. "I have been hungry," he said, his voice weak but clear. "I have been cold, but I have never been a thief." The room fell silent again. This time, it was not fear. It was shame. At the side of the courtroom, the bailiff quietly reached for his radio. The bailiff's hand stayed on his radio, but he did not speak into it yet. He looked at Judge Whitaker. That small hesitation told the whole room something had changed. Yesterday, Whitaker's word had been enough to make everyone move. Now, even the bailiff wanted someone else to hear what was happening. Whitaker saw it too. "Take your hand off that radio," he said. The bailiff did not move. Maya stood beside Matthew with the black ledger open in her hands. Her injured fingers throbbed under the stained white handkerchief. Her ribs hurt every time she breathed. She was scared enough that her knees felt weak, but she kept her eyes on the bench. "Your Honor," she said, "this court cannot continue under you. Your name, your handwriting, and your private records are part of the evidence." Whitaker's face hardened. "You are a clerk. You do not decide what this court can or cannot do." "No," Maya said softly, "but the law does." Harding snapped his briefcase shut. "This is illegal. That book was stolen. Nothing in it can be used." Marcus turned toward him. "You want to talk about illegal?" Harding pointed at him. "You broke into a judge's home. I used a family key to enter a house I had permission to access for years. I opened a safe I had been told to open before, and I found records of fraud, extortion, and elder exploitation." Whitaker's voice thundered. "You will be silent." Marcus flinched, but he did not stop. "No, I was silent yesterday. That was the crime I committed for you." A sound moved through the courtroom. Not quite a gasp, not quite a murmur. Several older men in the back row stood straighter. Maya looked toward the bailiff. "Please call the presiding judge's chambers and the county prosecutor." Whitaker slammed the gavel. "Do not follow that order." The bailiff's face tightened. Then he lifted the radio. "Courtroom 2. Requesting supervisory assistance," he said. "Possible judicial conflict and evidence issue. Notify chambers and prosecutor's office." Whitaker stared at him, as if betrayal had become contagious. Gordon Finch suddenly stood. "I'm not part of this," he said. "I came to watch a public hearing." Maya turned a page in the ledger. Gordon Finch. Asset recovery contact. Silver star pending. Gold watch recovered. 3 military decorations transferred. Gordon's face drained of color. "That doesn't prove anything." Henry Caldwell raised his cane from the back row. "You took my father's watch." Gordon backed into the bench behind him. "You sold it. You called it a processing fee." Carl Benson grabbed his folder. "I want to withdraw my claim." Maya looked at him. "Now?" Carl's voice shook. "I don't want trouble." Matthew turned to him slowly. "You wanted $940 from me 10 minutes ago." Carl could not meet his eyes. The side door opened, and 2 court officers entered with a woman in a charcoal suit. She was Judge Elena Morris, the presiding judge for the county's Superior Court Division. Behind her came Assistant County Prosecutor Daniel Price, carrying a legal pad and looking as if he had been pulled out of a meeting too quickly. Judge Morris looked first at Whitaker, then at Maya, then at Matthew's silver star, then at the ledger. "What is going on in this courtroom?" she asked. Whitaker answered immediately. "A disgruntled clerk and my nephew are attempting to derail a routine debt, proceeding with stolen property and wild accusations." Maya's heart pounded. For one terrible second, she feared the room would bend back toward power. Then Marcus stepped forward. "My name is Marcus Reed," he said. "Judge Whitaker is my uncle. He placed me near Maya Williams to monitor her investigation into Matthew Ryan's missing pension. I reported to him. Last night, I recovered this ledger from his home safe. It lists 17 elderly veterans targeted through small debt proceedings, financial contracts, and asset recovery." Judge Morris's expression changed. "Do you understand what you are saying?" "Yes, ma'am." "And are you willing to put that in a sworn statement?" "I already did." Marcus pulled folded pages from his coat and handed them to the prosecutor. "Signed before Reverend Paulson this morning." He witnessed it. Maya lifted the ledger. "There are copies as well. One for the court, one for the prosecutor." one prepared for the State Judicial Conduct Office. For the first time, Whitaker looked truly trapped. Harding moved toward the aisle. Ranger stepped once in his direction and let out a low, warning growl. Marcus held the leash tight. "Stay where you are." Harding froze. Judge Morris turned to the bailiff. "Secure the exits." Whitaker rose from the bench. "Elena, you cannot be serious." "I am very serious," she said. Step down from the bench. The courtroom went silent. Whitaker's eyes burned. "This is my courtroom." "Not anymore." The words landed harder than any gavel. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Whitaker stepped down. He removed himself from the bench, not with humility, but with the stiff rage of a man whose robe had stopped protecting him. He walked past Maya without looking at her. He walked past Matthew without looking at him either. Matthew watched him go. There was no victory on the old man's face, only exhaustion. Judge Morris took the bench. She did not sit right away. She remained standing, as if the chair itself needed a moment to be cleansed of what had just happened. "Mr. Ryan," she said, her voice softer, "please remain where you are. Miss Williams, place the ledger with the bailiff. Mr. Price, I want this evidence logged immediately. We will suspend the debt proceeding pending investigation." Carl Benson raised a hand weakly. "Your Honor, I withdraw. You will remain available for questioning," Judge Morris said. Carl lowered his hand. Harding tried to speak. "Your Honor, my firm, you will also remain available." Gordon opened his mouth, then closed it. Maya handed the ledger to the bailiff. Her fingers shook when she let go. For hours, that book had felt like both a weapon and a weight. Now, finally, it belonged to the record. Judge Morris looked at Matthew. "Mr. Ryan, this court will not remand you today." Matthew's knees bent slightly. Maya reached for his arm. He whispered, "Thank you." Judge Morris continued, "The claims against you are suspended. The prosecutor will review the allegations of elder financial exploitation, fraud, coercion, and misconduct by officers of this court." Matthew looked at Maya. "Does that mean I can go home?" Maya wanted to say yes. She wanted to say it was over, but she would not lie to him. "It means you're not going to jail today," she said. "And it means they have to look at what happened to you." Matthew nodded slowly. Judge Morris's gaze moved to Maya's bandaged hand and the way she held her side. "Miss Williams, were you injured in this courtroom?" The room stilled again. Maya felt Whitaker's presence near the side wall, though he was no longer on the bench. She was afraid again, but Matthew stood beside her. Marcus stood on the other side. Ranger sat at attention. Henry Caldwell watched from the back row. Maya took a breath. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "I was." Judge Morris turned to the bailiff. "Document that as well." Whitaker's face went gray. For the first time since the case began, the truth did not have to beg for permission to be heard. And Matthew Ryan, who had walked into that courtroom with 22 cents, a hungry stomach, and a medal he thought he might have to sell, stood beneath the American flag and realized he was not alone anymore. Judge Morris did not let the room breathe for long. "Mr. Price," she said, "read the relevant portions of the ledger into the preliminary record." Assistant County Prosecutor Daniel Price stepped forward. He looked younger than the weight of the moment required, but his voice was steady. The bailiff handed him the black ledger. Price opened it carefully, as if the pages themselves might cut. Maya stood beside Matthew with her injured hand tucked close to her body. She wanted to sit down. Her ribs hurt. Her legs felt weak, but Matthew was still standing, so she stayed with him. Price began. "Henry Caldwell, age 88, Army, widower, medical bill pressure. Gold watch recovered." Henry lowered his head in the back row. Two old veterans beside him placed their hands on his shoulders. Price continued. "Samuel Ortiz, age 85, Marine Corps, utility debt pressure. Purple Heart recovered. Pension access active." A man in the gallery whispered, "Sammy?" Another name. "Leonard Brooks, age 89, Navy, pharmacy, debt pressure, house title, pending." Then another, and another. 17 names filled the courtroom, one by one. Not numbers, not debts. Men, old men who had once stood watch, carried rifles, crossed oceans, buried friends, raised families, paid taxes, and grown old believing the country they served would at least leave them their dignity. Matthew listened with his eyes closed. When Price reached his name, the room changed again. Matthew Ryan, age 90, Navy UDT, widow deceased, food debt pressure effective, Silver Star recoverable, trailer title pending. Price stopped for a moment, his jaw tight. Judge Morris looked toward Matthew. Mr. Ryan, I am sorry that had to be read aloud. Matthew opened his eyes. No, Your Honor. It needed daylight. Maya felt tears rise, but she held them back. Harding stood near the sidewall between two court officers. His polished calm had begun to crack. Gordon Finch kept wiping sweat from his forehead with the same handkerchief he had used the day before to clean his glasses. Carl Benson looked smaller now, his folder held against his chest like a shield. Judge Morris turned to Price. Summarize the pattern. Price nodded. Based on the ledger and the documents provided, the apparent pattern is this. Elderly veterans were brought before this court or pressured through small civil debt claims. After public embarrassment or threat of custody, they were referred, directly or indirectly, to Harding Financial Solutions. Contracts then authorized withdrawals through Apex Holdings LLC. When funds were exhausted, Gordon Finch appears to have obtained personal property, including medals, watches, wedding rings, and other heirlooms, under the label of fees or asset recovery. And Judge Whitaker's involvement? Morris asked. Price looked at the ledger. Initials, H, W, appear beside all 17 entries. Several notes reference court pressure, hearing dates, and case outcomes. Whitaker, standing near the sidewall, spoke through clenched teeth. Those are private notes. They prove nothing. Maya's voice came out small, but clear. They prove he knew their names before he called them failures. Whitaker turned toward her. You still don't know when to stop. Maya flinched, but she did not look away. No, sir. I'm learning when not to. A quiet murmur moved through the gallery. Judge Morris struck the gavel once. Judge Whitaker, you will not address Miss Williams again unless instructed. The words stunned the room. For the first time, someone had told him to be silent. Matthew opened the wooden box in his hands. Slowly, he removed the silver star and held it up. Not high, not dramatically, just enough for the room to see. I tried to trade this yesterday, he said. No one interrupted. I thought if I could buy it back later, maybe the boys would forgive me. His voice weakened. Maya reached for his elbow, but he gently shook his head. I was hungry. I was cold. I was ashamed. But I was not a thief. The old veterans in the gallery stood, not all at once. One first, then another, then another. Their knees were bad, their backs bent, but they rose anyway. Matthew looked at them and swallowed hard. Judge Morris's voice softened. Mr. Ryan, the claim against you is suspended pending investigation. The court also orders immediate referral to Adult Protective Services, the County Elder Fraud Unit, and the State Judicial Conduct Commission. Mr. Price, request emergency review of Apex Holdings accounts and Harding Financial Solutions records. Price nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Harding stepped forward. Your Honor, my firm has complied with all applicable regulations. These men signed documents. Regret is not fraud. Maya looked at him. Grief is not consent. The line was quiet, but it struck him harder than if she had shouted. Henry Caldwell lifted his cane. And fear is not a signature. Judge Morris looked at Harding. You will provide all records requested. You will not contact any listed individual. You will not move funds pending review. Harding's face tightened. I need my attorney. You should call one. Gordon Finch tried to slip toward the rear door. Ranger saw him first. The German Shepherd rose, not barking, not lunging, just standing in the aisle with his amber eyes fixed on Gordon. Marcus said softly, Sit down, Mr. Finch. Gordon froze. Then he sat. Carl Benson began to speak. Your Honor, I didn't know it was this big. I just filed what I was told. Maya turned to him. Told by who? Carl's mouth opened, then closed. Judge Morris pointed to Price. Take his statement separately. Carl went pale. The courtroom had become something different now. Not peaceful, not healed, but awake. Maya finally allowed herself to sit. Matthew eased into the chair beside her. He looked older than he had when he entered, and yet somehow less broken. Marcus stood a few feet away, unable to meet Maya's eyes. Matthew looked at him. "Son." Marcus stepped closer. "Sir, I'm sorry. I helped them watch her. I helped slow things down. I knew enough to know I was wrong." Matthew studied him for a long moment. Then he said, "A man is not measured by the first wrong thing he does. He is measured by whether he has the courage to stop doing it." Marcus's eyes reddened. Maya did not forgive him. Not yet. But she did not turn away from him either. Judge Morris gave one final order. "Court is adjourned, pending further proceedings. Mr. Ryan, you are free to go today." Free. The word moved through Matthew slowly, as if his old bones needed time to believe it. He stood with Maya's help. The veterans in the back raised their hands in salute. Matthew looked at them, at Henry, at Maya, at Ranger, at the flag behind the bench. Then, with shaking fingers, he lifted his hand and saluted back. This time, no one laughed. No one called him a freeloader, and no one in that room could pretend they had not seen what justice looked like when it finally stopped looking away. 3 weeks later, the rain in Bremerton had not fully stopped, but the light had changed. It no longer fell gray and hard across the streets like punishment. That afternoon, it came soft through the clouds, touching the wet sidewalks, the ferry terminal, and the old brick face of Carl's Harbor Diner, which no longer had Carl's name on the window. The new sign simply read, "Harbor Diner." Inside, the place smelled of coffee, beef stew, warm cornbread, and fresh pie. The vinyl booths had been wiped clean. The old counter stools had new red seats. On the bulletin board near the register, someone had pinned notices for veterans' rides, elder fraud assistance, free legal clinics, and Sunday church suppers. Matthew Ryan stood just inside the doorway, one hand on his cane, the other resting over the silver star pinned carefully to his coat. For a moment, he did not move. Maya Williams stood beside him. Her right hand had healed, though 2 faint lines still crossed her fingers. Her ribs still ached on cold mornings. She had returned to work at the courthouse, but not quietly. Judge Whitaker had been suspended pending investigation. His old cases were being reviewed. Harding Financial Solutions was under state and federal scrutiny. Apex Holdings had been frozen. Gordon Finch's shop had been searched, and boxes of medals, watches, rings, letters, and old family Bibles had been carried out under evidence tags. Carl Benson had lost the diner. He had also begun talking. That, Maya had learned, was what frightened men did when they realized more powerful men were willing to let them take the fall. Matthew looked around the diner. "Feels different." Maya nodded. "It is different." The new owner, a broad woman in her 60s named Joanne Miller, came from behind the counter with a coffee pot in one hand and a smile that did not ask for forgiveness because she was not the one who owed it. "Mr. Ryan," she said, "your table is ready." Matthew blinked. "My table?" "Yes, sir." She led him to a booth near the window. On the wall above it hung a framed photograph of Matthew as a young man in uniform. Beside it was a small American flag folded in a triangular case and a plain brass plate that read, "For those who served, and for those we nearly forgot." Matthew stared at it for a long time. His mouth moved, but no words came out. Maya touched his arm. "You don't have to say anything." He gave a small, broken laugh. "At my age, silence is sometimes safer." "Not always," Maya said. He looked at her, and both of them understood. They sat across from each other. Ranger lay under the table, his head resting near Matthew's shoes. Marcus stood near the entrance, hands folded in front of him, no longer trying to hide in the background but not forcing himself into the center either. He had testified twice already. He had turned over messages, access logs, and everything he knew about Whitaker's network. Some people in town called him brave. Maya did not. Not yet. She called him useful. And for Marcus, that was more mercy than he expected. Matthew looked toward him. "You planning to stand there all afternoon, son?" Marcus looked surprised. "I didn't want to intrude." Matthew nodded toward the empty space beside Maya. Then don't intrude. Sit. Marcus glanced at Maya. She did not smile, but she did move her purse from the seat. He sat. Joanne brought 3 cups of coffee. Then came a plate of beef stew, mashed potatoes, buttered green beans, and cornbread warm enough to steam when Matthew broke it open. The old man looked down at the food. His hand trembled. Maya saw it and quietly moved the napkin closer to him. Matthew reached for his wallet. Joanne shook her head. Already paid for, sir. Matthew frowned. By who? The diner door opened. Henry Caldwell stepped in first, leaning on his cane, wearing a dark army cap and a heavy wool coat. Behind him came other old men, some with walkers, some with canes, some moving slowly with the help of younger adult relatives, neighbors, or fellow veterans from the VFW. Every one of them was over 18, every face lined by time, every cap carrying a branch, a war, a ship, a unit, or a memory. 17 names had been in Whitaker's book. Not all 17 could come. 2 were in assisted living. 1 was in the hospital. Another had family driving in from Spokane. But the ones who could stand had come, and the ones who could not had sent letters. Henry stopped beside Matthew's booth. Figured we owed you a meal, Henry said. Matthew shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Henry's eyes softened. That's where you're wrong. One by one, the men raised their hands in salute. Matthew tried to stand too quickly. His knee buckled, and Marcus reached out to steady him. Matthew did not pull away. Slowly, carefully, the old Navy man rose. He returned the salute. No one spoke for several seconds. Even the coffee machine seemed quieter. Maya looked at the men, the caps, the worn hands, the wet coats, the medals some had pinned on after years of leaving them in drawers. She thought of her father, Isaiah Williams, standing alone in a courtroom with papers no one cared to read. She wished he could have seen this, not because it would erase what happened to him. Nothing could, but because he would have known that silence had not won forever. Joanne placed a small envelope beside Maya. What's this? Maya asked. Letters, Joanne said. From some of the men who couldn't come. They asked me to give them to you. Maya touched the envelope but did not open it yet. She was afraid if she did, she might cry in front of everyone. Matthew sat again, slowly. Henry took the chair at the end of the booth. Marcus remained quiet. Ranger lifted his head just long enough for Henry to scratch behind his ears. Matthew looked at the plate in front of him. 3 weeks ago, I was ashamed because I couldn't pay for stew, Henry said. 3 weeks ago, they wanted you ashamed. That was the trick. Maya nodded. Shame keeps people quiet. Matthew looked at her. And what breaks it? Maya looked around the diner, at the old men standing together, at Marcus sitting with the weight of truth on his shoulders, at Ranger under the table, at the photo on the wall. Witnesses, she said. People willing to say, I saw what happened, and I won't pretend I didn't. Marcus lowered his eyes. Matthew picked up his spoon, then paused. Maya, yes, sir. I never thanked you properly. You don't have to. Yes, he said. I do. His voice grew rough. You were scared in that courtroom. I saw it. He hurt you. He tried to shame you. And you still stood there for me. Maya looked down at her coffee. I was scared. I know. I almost sat down. But you didn't. She blinked hard. Matthew's voice softened. That is what courage looks like most of the time. Not loud, not clean. Just somebody trembling and staying anyway. Maya could not answer for a moment. Marcus finally spoke. And cowardice looks like standing close enough to help and choosing not to. No one rushed to comfort him. After a while, Matthew said, then keep choosing different. Marcus nodded. I will. Outside, a truck rolled past, tires hissing on wet pavement. Inside, Joanne refilled coffee cups. Veterans settled into booths. Someone laughed quietly. Someone else began telling an old story about a bad cook on a Navy ship. The diner became what it should have been from the beginning. A warm place for hungry people, not a doorway into humiliation. Matthew took his first bite of stew. He closed his eyes. Maya watched relief move across his face. Not dramatic, not sudden, but deep. A simple meal, a warm room, a table where no one was asking him to trade a medal or a wedding ring for the right to stay free. Above him, the photograph of his younger self looked out across the diner. But Maya was not looking at the young soldier. She was looking at the old man who survived being forgotten. A few minutes later, Matthew reached into his coat and touched the wooden box inside. Martha's ring was there. The silver star was on his chest. His home had heat again. His pension was under review. His name had been cleared in the court record. It was not everything. It did not return the years, the hunger, the cold nights, or the shame, but it gave him back the one thing Whitaker's book had tried to steal completely: meaning. Matthew looked across the table at Maya. "Some debts," she said quietly, "are not paid with money, Mr. Ryan. Some are paid with honor." He nodded, then lifted his coffee cup with both hands. "To honor," Henry said. "To truth," Marcus added. Maya looked toward the rain-washed window and thought of her father. "To the ones who were not heard in time," she said. The men bowed their heads, and in that small diner in Bremerton, beneath a flag, beside a wall of notices, with coffee warming the air and rain softening the street outside, Matthew Ryan was no longer a freeloader, no longer a case number, no longer an old man priced in a secret ledger. He was a veteran. He was a husband. He was a witness. And at last, he was not alone. The lesson of this story is that justice does not always begin with power. Sometimes it begins with one frightened person who refuses to stay silent. Matthew Ryan's pain reminds us that elderly veterans, and all vulnerable people, deserve more than polite words of thanks. They deserve protection, dignity, and someone willing to stand beside them when the system turns cruel. Maya Williams shows us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is speaking the truth, even when your voice shakes. And Marcus Reed's choice reminds us that it is never too late to stop serving a lie and start defending what is right. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. If it touched your heart, I would truly love to hear your thoughts on the storytelling, the emotional pacing, or whatever stayed with you after listening. Every comment you share helps make the next stories more honest, moving, and meaningful. And if you have a powerful or meaningful story of your own, please do not hesitate to send it to the channel. It may become the next story to touch and inspire thousands of others. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.